Yes, welcome back to the program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And this segment is going out on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube channel and obviously on the broadcast platforms of Al Ansar in Durban and Peter Maritzburg and across the country and globally on the online and satellite platforms of Salam Media. Now, corporate governance in Islamic NGOs and the NGO sector in general is extremely important in order to facilitate the statistical record keeping as well as uh, ethical dispensation of funds that come in. And there's always a chance to learn from those who have got the experience and who have already been through the mill. And a webinar is now being set up so that NPOs out there, non-profit organizations, can benefit from the lessons that have been learned. It's been hosted by Awqaf South Africa, AMAL, that is the Association of Muslim Accountants and Lawyers, as well as the South African National Zakah Fund and the United Ulama Council of South Africa. I'm joined now online by the CEO of Awqaf South Africa, Mr. Zeinoul Cajee. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Zeinoul.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah for having me on this program.
All right, well done, and Jazakallah khairan for making time for us. Now tell us the importance of this particular webinar. Why are you and all of these organizations putting in the effort to host this kind of an information session?
Okay, I think Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and Salamu Alaikum to all the listeners and viewers out there. First of all, corporate governance is about good governance, about good management, about good oversight of our organizations, and to ensure that we have good policies and procedures that will enable our organizations to function according to its mandate and according to its mission and according to expectations that the public out there may have of the organization. So to create a very enabling environment, to create an organization or an entity that functions well, to create an organization that is accountable, that is transparent, that actually works according to sound ethical Islamic principles of shura, of trust, amana. I think those are some key points that enable an organization to create that confidence and the trust that people out there and the public out there has placed in them. And of course, ultimately, it's also about accountability, not only to the public and donors, but also to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So good corporate governance and good practice or best practices are important for not only NGOs and NPOs, but also businesses. So, it actually cuts across various entities. But here we're looking at specifically Islamic NPOs or non-profit organizations that have undertaken the task of delivering certain services. They collect funds from the public, and there's definitely issues of good donor relations, good sort of feedback, and of course good accountability. There's so there are many issues about internal controls and good ethical conduct as well.
We've
So
seen in the recent years a proliferation of non-profit organizations, NGOs, people wanting to go out there and do good community work. And Alhamdulillah, I think that's a great sign. It shows people want to be active and want to change the negative reality that may be out there, and they want to get involved. But along with that, as you're saying, there is a lot of paperwork and administration and having your ducks in a row in order to be able to report back effectively and run ethically. Do you think that many organizations unfortunately misjudge that and just jump into the entire fray of it without taking that into cognizance?
yeah, I think many times I think people do things on impulse and they feel that there's a need for certain things to be done in the community, and they get on to the job and they do it without actually thinking through all the ramifications of good governance. Now, you actually mentioned something about which is quite interesting, that there are so many new NPOs that are springing up all over, And I remember, that somebody actually, one of the brothers who's from Turkey mentioned to one of his scholars that, here in South Africa, we have a plethora of organizations and so forth. And he says that that's an indication of a very vibrant community. So Alhamdulillah, I think it's a very positive thing that we do have many NPOs and NGOs. And I think if one has to count between mosques, welfare organizations, schools, and relief organizations, and even little community organizations that spring up, we probably have maybe between 1,500 and 2,000 of these, all over the country, from women's groups to youth groups to, recently we have the food gardening and all of those type of programs as well. So I think that if we have a good understanding of the governance structures that are required, the separation of duties between the boards of directors and management, and to create a system in which there is sustainability of the organization, that we'd like to see these organizations growing. We'd like to see there's succession in the organizations. Very often, the organization dies with the founder as well. The death of the founder is the death of the organization, and we've seen this in the past as well. We've even seen organizations collapse because of perhaps inaccurate or misappropriation of funds, or that unilateral decision making, no proper shura in the organization, conflicts within the organization, and all of these issues impact on the viability and the deliverability and deliverables of the organization. So I think it's important, again, to have all these good practices in place. And the beauty part of it is that Islam does provide us with many of these guidelines, and for management. And I mean, we've been involved, historically speaking, in a myriad of not only NGOs, like, for example, in the Awqaf sector, there's been thousands upon thousands of Waqf institutions that, in fact, also fell by the wayside. But we've also had very strong administration in terms of government and so forth as well, because that's where we actually come from a civilization that literally ruled half the world. So, all that experience is there. One just has to look into the Ottoman archives, and we will find, documentation that goes back hundreds of years, records, accounting records that go hundreds of years. So, I was confronted once with a situation where we were looking for documents of a particular organization that we needed, like maybe 20 years ago. And I was told that, the receiver of revenue only requires us to keep documents for 5 years or 10 years. So all those documents are destroyed. Now, I think typically we need to ensure that as part of our good practice is that we keep these documents, because we never know, even for historical record keeping, it's important that we know, what those documents say, what the history of it is. Another very interesting thing that I came across is some documents that came to the fore that were produced in round about 1912. Now that's a long time ago, and this was documents that were of fundraising that was done in South Africa, where this person went mosque to mosque in almost every country town. Imagine. And there's a record of all the donors' names in that document.
Subhanallah.
Alhamdulillah. This is like quite amazing. And also that it showed that Muslims were involved in fundraising, not only for South Africa at that time, but I believe there was an earthquake or something in Turkey at that time. and South African Muslims contributed towards some relief in Turkey at that time. And those records were kept in the archives of the Turkish Red Crescent. And we have got access to those documents. So it actually shows that good record keeping and keeping it for a long period of time actually shows also the histories of what we as Muslims have been doing.
Yes, I suspect that the entire deen that we have, the entire religion of Islam, is founded on the principles of record keeping. We have the Quran that was documented, the Hadith, and the various rulings thereafter over centuries and centuries that we benefit from today, and will probably, people will use it up until the day of Qiyamah as well. Now, this particular webinar that is taking place, Zeinoul, what are some of the details around it, the participants, and what can people expect from it?
Okay, so alhamdulillah, we have a brother, Suleiman Badat, who's the lead presenter. He comes with the background that he has been part of the King 4 committee on corporate governance. And we know that in South Africa, the King reports and the King document on corporate governance have been around for a long time, and they have been kind of progressing from year to year. And it is now mandatory for many of the JSE organizations, companies, to actually put a note in the financial statements about their governance practices and so forth. So we have Brother Suleiman Badat, who really initiated this project as well, together with Awqaf South Africa, and then we brought in the other groups as well. Amal, by the way, has been also, in fact, these two initiatives started almost simultaneously. So Amal has also got an initiative about compliance. And so a brother by the name of Faisal Suleiman, who's also a chartered accountant, will be presenting on the compliance side of things, the tech side of things. And then, of course, we have a good array of panelists, starting from Brother Shaukat Faki, who's been chairman of SANZEF, and he's also been the ex-auditor general of South Africa. Then we have Sister Fatima Abba. She is a practitioner at Deloitte, one of the big firms in South Africa, chartered accountant as well. We have Brother Farid Jassat, who's a lawyer, who's also a member of Amal, and he comes also with the background of the legal requirements. Then, of course, we have Sheikh Ihsan Talib, who represents UXA on this panel, and he will be talking from the ulama perspective on good corporate governance. I may have forgotten one or two people there. I think we've got, I mentioned Fatima Abba, Shaukat Faki, Sheikh Ihsan, Farid
Yes,
Jassat.
Muhammad Mohammadi, who's also on
Muhammad
board.
Mohammadi, yes. Muhammad Mohammadi has been literally in the forefront. I think he's also provided some seminars on good corporate governance, and we know that he comes from one of the state enterprises, Transnet, that has been in the news for a long time with all the state corruption and state capture and all of that. So he also comes with good background on corporate governance as well. So I think, alhamdulillah, we have a very good team of people, panelists that are going to be on the program and who will be able to give us good insights from their own experiences as well. There will be a Q&A session after the lead presenters, and the panelists will make a small input as well on their respective areas. And then, of course, it will be followed by a Q&A. And, we'd be happy to entertain questions in advance. And then we'll look at a kind of a way forward and how things will pan out.
We're going to have to leave it there. We've come to 9 o'clock. Just to give the details quickly, Saturday, the 11th of July, from 3 to 4:30 p.m., this wonderful webinar is planned for. It is on Zoom, so you need to register. Online registration is important. And you can contact Hassanain at awqafsa.org.za. Hassanain, that's Hassanain at awqaf.org.za. for that registration. It's online registration as well. And you can, the call-in number 079 507 1196. Uncle Zainul, Jazakallah khairan for your time. You go well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Walaikum salam
barakatuh.
wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khairan.